My name is Chef Dave. I'm here with Taste Europe Butter of France, and today we're going to be showcasing 3 techniques using European butter from France. So today for our 3 techniques, we're going to focus on first brown butter, then 3 different types of compound butter, and we're going to finish with a little twist on beurre blanc, one of my favorite French sauces. I'm joined today by 3 different influencers.
Hi, I'm Julia. I'm here from the Spicy Juju.
Hi, my name is Krysten and I'm from the Daily Kale.
Hey, I'm Claire and I'm here with the Feedfeed.
All right, let's get started. So we're going to brown some butter. And I think, browning butter can be kind of one of those scary things because it's like controlled burning. Mm-hmm. You walk a delicate line of how toasted you want something. So we're gonna walk through the stages of the brown butter in the pan, but then we have them in front of us too. Basically, butter is an emulsion. It has water content, it has fat content, and it has proteins that keep it emulsified. The magic of this butter, the magic of a lot of French butters, is that the fat content is substantially higher than your generic off-the-shelf butter that you typically get. And the reason this butter is so magical is because when you brown it, the higher the fat content, the less water that boils off.
So it's like thicker when you melt it?
You just get a higher yield. This is a French butter. Even when you touch it now, it's sitting out, it's cold, but it's still pretty pliable.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just really rich. If you smell it, it smells like, all right?
It feels nice.
You want to take a nap on it. It's like a little pillow.
Yeah.
So it's starting to bubble a little bit. When I was making this at home at one point, my first time making brown butter ever, it started making that really weird, scary noise, like hissing at me, and it was scary. But now I'm realizing that it's okay. It's common.
Right now, what you have is you have fat, and then if you look at the bottom, you kind of see that there's like water. That's the white is right there. So right now we're boiling it.
Okay.
Right, we're boiling the water out beneath the fat. So what you hear is the thin layer of water in here kind of bubbling through the fat.
Gotcha.
And you'll see bigger bubbles. Bigger bubbles means it's boiling. Basically, you're just clarifying the fat. Yeah.
You're like unfazed.
That's what I'm telling you about it. It scared me.
So everything that you see around the top, these are the milk solids.
Oh, okay.
And this is what we're going to be cooking to make brown butter.
So now you're starting to stir it.
You want to keep it moving because you want those milk solids to toast evenly. You don't want them to burn to the bottom.
Right.
But I learned it off of a YouTube video, so.
I learned a lot of things on YouTube.
Yeah, you can learn a lot on YouTube.
I learned how to press ducks on YouTube. So, you find your information where you need it, right? But yeah, so now you see that the bubbles are getting a lot smaller.
Right.
It's not making scary noises.
And you just leave it on one consistent heat the entire time. Are you ever messing with?
The closer you get to the finish line, because you have to consider carryover.
Okay.
So the closer you get to where you want it, I like to kill the heat and let the residual heat of the pan finish it. This is where I usually lower the temp.
Okay.
Because you want to kind of go slow and low so you can control it. It's also where I start whisking it because you don't want things to stick to the bottom.
So I feel like this is where like a home cook would probably start to get a little bit nervous and think like, okay, maybe
this is where you should get nervous.
Okay.
And so this is the point where I kill the heat, take it off, and you see how those are kind of coloring. We're starting to get pretty brown.
Right.
So now's when we want to strain it.
Ooh. So you want like a nice golden color. You don't want super ambery.
So
we have brown butter.
I normally see brown butter in like desserts and like cookies and stuff, but what kind of like savory dishes are there that use brown butter?
It's funny because I feel like a lot of restaurant chefs think of brown butter in the savory aspect. And I think of a lot of home cooks tend to think of it more in the brown butter chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah.
My mom would never think like a brown butter sauce for chicken. But if you think about it, if you sear chicken in a pan with a little butter and you take that chicken out, that butter's browned in that pan. And if you put a little lemon in it, next thing you know, you have lemon butter chicken.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So as you start to think about pan sauces, that's when you start to play with brown butter and savory food.
If you wanted to store brown butter, can you store it the same way that you would store any typical French butter or any typical butter?
100%. So what we'll do is we'll make large batches of brown butter, and then we'll roll them into logs and slice them.
Oh, okay.
Or cube them. You can put it in a pan. A great move is just pour it into ice cube trays.
What's your favorite dish to make with the strained brown butter?
One of my favorite French sauces, pan sauce, is Meunière. It's like a brown butter flour sauce. The miller's wife, so the wife of the flour miller, always had a lot of flour on it. So when she'd cook, it was always on a river. They'd take trout, they'd season it with flour, sear it, take it out, put butter in the pan, brown it, and that became this pan sauce. That's Meunière.
Oh, okay.
So let's move on to the next one. We're gonna make 3 different compound butters. One for cooking, one for finishing, and one for just spreading on bread and eating it. But we're gonna start first with one of my favorites. It's classic French herb butter. So Hotel Maitre D'. Have you made compound butters?
I
Is
did
this like in your
dabble in it
wheelhouse?
a little bit,
Dabbled?
yes.
What does it mean to dabble?
No,
in compound
dabbled.
butter?
You know, dabbled in it.
Oh no, yeah, but the idea with a finishing butter, like the hotel butter, is that it doesn't get cooked afterwards. So you want to have everything basically ready, so when you mix it all, you have a finished product.
So what is the benefit of using French butter for compound butter versus any other butter that has the...
Flavor, flat out. I mean, you know, we're looking at something, especially in the case of this finishing butter, that really becomes the showpiece, right? It's completing the dish.
How long do you saute that for before you add the butter?
Well, the magic chef answer is you cook it till it's done.
Oh, okay.
It'll talk to you.
Right.
Yeah, you have to listen to it. It'll talk to you. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to sweat it. We're not going to saute it. And the idea behind sweating it is you're basically wilting it. You're steaming it. So we don't want caramelization. We're just looking for it to soften. This is what we're making.
It's a heavy log.
Yeah, this is our log of hotel butter. And if you look closely at it, you can see the shallots. They're kind of translucent.
Oh, yeah.
You see the lemon zest, the herbs. So we're making this right now. So from this point, we're going to add vermouth. We're going to let that kind of wilt down.
Oh, I
Just going
smell
to
it.
let that kind of gently reduce down until it's dry. So this is where you come in, because you're going to do the other half of compound butter. So you're going to want to do is take one of these cubes, put it into here.
Ready?
All right, so these are done sweating and reducing. This is what we're looking for. Basically, we're cooking out all the liquid. And so now you have some really flavorful cooked shallots, garlic, and peppercorns. The idea is no residual liquid, because we don't want to dilute the flavor of the butter. We want to add more flavor to it. And so if you get too much water content in there, you're basically defeating the purpose of using the French butter. The whole
Right.
idea behind the French butter is a high fat content.
Keep it thick, yeah.
Yeah,
We
so-
like it thick.
High fat content means more flavor. All right, so you're gonna pour in the lemon juice and lemon zest over there, and then just throw a good handful of herbs right in there as well.
I like a lot of herbs. Oops.
So, chervil, tarragon, parsley. We're really building off those anise flavors for it. Now you just want to incorporate this. So turn it on, mix it all together real quick. The big thing with this is temperature control. So we pulled out our cooked onion mix, put it in the bowl just to kind of let it cool down a little bit.
If it's too hot, would it do anything? Would it ruin the compound butter?
It basically will melt the butter and cause it to break. So you'll end up with some butter that is clarified.
And that's not savable after?
It is. You can whip it back together. As long as it doesn't fully melt, you can whip it back together. So if it's a little warm, we can incorporate it.
Okay.
So now we're fully incorporated. That's it. So from this point, we'll turn it off. We'll clear our area, and then we're going to roll it into a log. So the key to success, damp towel, give it a nice wipe. And then what happens when you put this down and press it, it doesn't slide, so it makes it easier to roll. So now you're going to put the butter right in the middle. Fold it over. Dough card, best thing you can have in the kitchen. So you're going to take this. We're going to push the butter to one side,
Oh.
and then you're going to fold it over and roll it. Flip it, and then you're just going to roll the edges tight with your hand when you're done. To push it all to the center like a log. And then you're just going to put that in the fridge. Hotel maitre d' butter. So now, let's make the honey butter.
You said we're caramelizing the honey?
Yeah, we are caramelizing the honey.
Flavor.
So honey, as soon as you apply heat to it, the flavor profile totally changes. And you know, right off the bat when you smell it,
Yeah.
you probably already get it. Caramelized honey has a very distinct roasted aroma to it. You know, as soon as it gets that heat, it changes.
Wow.
All right, so you can go ahead and throw one of those blocks of butter in the pan.
Okay.
And then you're just gonna get it spinning and you're gonna season it with salt and black pepper.
Ooh.
But the slow drizzle will help.
You can really
We're
smell
just
it
gonna
now.
let it
Yeah.
emulsify in. We'll pull this out. We'll chill it. It'll be like this. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna re-whip this. And that'll be the end result. So you'll notice as you scrape it in, it's not 100% incorporated.
That was so good.
You know, ideally we would mix it colder so the butter doesn't separate, but then the honey will be too thick. So you have to let it break a little bit.
Okay.
That's kind of the quirkiness of this recipe, but that's how you make it special. So let's throw this in the fridge for 20 minutes and then we're gonna re-whip it.
Okay.
Our butter's cold-ish. It's reset. It's a lot more firm. And that's really what you're looking for, right? Because now we want to whip it. So, and you'll start to see it become a little more white in color. That's because we're aerating it. So the sugars are stretching. The cold sugar will help stabilize it so you can really kind of whip it up. And it doesn't take too long. You know, it's much more like whipped butter at this point.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So our honey butter's done. Compound butter number 2. From this point, we'll move on to our third one. First one was a finishing butter. The second one was a good spread. This one is going to be for cooking. In this case, we're just going to make a really simple herb butter. You're just going to take this butter, you're going to put it in that bowl, and you're going to put a sprinkle of each of these in there.
Easy enough.
And you're going to mix them.
I love simple cooking.
Yeah, super simple. So the idea is just utilize leftover products. You can use like herb stems, like let's say you pick a bunch of parsley for garnish and you have the stems, chop them up, fold them in. You know, your shallot butts, onion like shrapnel, the parts that you don't use.
You're right.
It becomes a great byproduct to be a flavoring to cook with. So we took the steak, just salt and pepper, super simple. Seared it on 2 sides and then put your cooking butter in. So that's the one with your lots of garlic. So it will be nicely garlicked. And then we just rested it with the first butter that we made, compound butter, the finishing butter. And we just let it rest and slowly melt over the top. And that's it. It's just super simple steak, and the whole idea is, again, reverting back to the idea of just have a good, simple ingredient with a couple little nuances and let them elevate each other. You guys feel good about compound butters?
Oh,
I feel so great.
All right, let's move on to the next thing then.
Okay.
Sweet.
Great. All right, so we are going to make one of my favorite French sauces, beurre blanc, meaning white butter.
Oh,
Essentially, it's a white wine reduction with butter. And it's one of those sauces that is annoyingly nuanced in that it's very particular. Essentially what you do is you make a white wine reduction, white wine, some vinegar, shallot, black pepper. In this case, we're gonna add a tiny little bit of garlic. But essentially what you wanna do is you wanna make a very concentrated flavor. And so we're going to heavily reduce this down.
Okay.
And then this liquid will be used to flavor the butter. Really the fundamental aspect of this, much like with everything we've done, it requires really good butter. You know, the very high fat content, flavorful butter. This butter's cultured, meaning it's slightly fermented to some extent. It's a little tangy. Beurre Blanc gets a nice tanginess to it from the white wine and the vinegar and lemon juice. So when you have a good French or European cultured butter, you can tone back how many other flavors you have to add to it as opposed to just loading it up. So we bring this down a touch. Once this comes down, we'll add a little bit of cream to it. Cream is already emulsified, so it helps with the emulsion process of the butter. So we're almost there on the reduction, and you see how there's basically nothing left?
Right.
So we're looking to take it down by 90%. The bottom should be just about dry, and essentially what we're gonna do is deglaze with the cream.
Okay.
So you don't want it to burn, and you don't want it to stick to the bottom, but we're looking for it to essentially disappear. What's going to happen is the majority of that flavor sits in those shallots, and then we're going to use those to infuse the cream. So at this point, we're just going to kill the heat, add the cream, stir it in, and that's it. Now we have our sauce.
Wow.
And so from this, we're going to let it sit for a few minutes, just to get all that flavor in. We'll strain it. We'll press it with a spoon to get all the liquid out of that, because the shallots are kind of dead at this point, and then we'll make our sauce. So first you're adding the butter. Then you're gonna add the creme fraiche. We're gonna hit it with a nice pinch of salt. Then we're gonna put the lid on, and we're gonna turn on the food processor, and basically we're just gonna incorporate everything together. It should get nice and smooth pretty quickly. Now, from that point, you can stop it, and then we'll add the lemon juice and some of the Beurre Blanc base. You see how it's more evenly incorporated now? It looks smoother, it's a bit shinier. Yeah, so now we're gonna add about a third of the Beurre Blanc base. That should be good, we can start there. And then I would add probably about half of your lemon juice. We'll put the top back on and we'll spin it again and we'll see how it is. Thank you. So it looks a lot smoother now. It all looks like one thing.
Oh, yeah.
That's the goal. From this point, as it looks texturally correct, all we're concerned about is flavor.
Okay.
So this is where now we start playing the game of, does it need more salt? Does it need more Beurre Blanc base? Does it need more lemon juice? Because the goal is that you can taste the white wine. You want the acidity, right? Because think about a vinaigrette. And you want salt, because salt makes things taste better. So we'll fix this up. We'll add some fresh chives on top. And then you guys can eat some radishes and butter. But that's it, right? The best things are always the simple things.
Right.
There's just a little bit of refinement. And there we are. Lead the way.
Dig in.
Good radishes, good French butter. That's all you really want, right?
So good together.
Yeah, I can see why that's very popular.
So that's how you make whipper Blanc.
So for the average person who's not bulk buying for a restaurant, how do I know that when I'm going to the grocery store, I'm specifically buying butter from France?
The beautiful thing about things like the French butter is that it will say in some iteration, origin France, made in France. I think the value in a lot of what we're doing today is seeing the purpose for having that high quality French butter in this scenario. How do we feel?
Feel great.
Good? Okay? Inspired?
Inspired.
Great. Thanks for coming. I hope you guys learned something. I had fun. Good products are near and dear to my heart. So glad that we got to spend this lovely time together.
Yeah,
Thanks.
likewise. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you,
Chef.
Chef.
Of course.